Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Wasteland number 7 through 9, continuing our scholarly examination of this amazing anthology series from the late 80s. For the most part, same creators. There is one little guest artist in number 8, which we shall see shortly. Let's start with number 7, June 1988. Of course, the same 2 writers who write everything in Wasteland, and the same 4 artists. Cover by William Messner Loebs. Very just odd, curious cover. It's kind of fascinating to think that 1988 DC Comics, this is before Vertigo had even started, but they would have this as a cover. This kind of art style, I mean, crazy. William Messner Loeb's very cartoony, loose style. So we get to finish off the cliffhanger from last time, On the Road conclusion, or How We Raised the Price of Whiskey at Butterfly Mine number 2 in West Virginia. This is another one of Del Close's autobiographical stories, adapted and scripted by John Ostrander, and art by George Freeman. Really nice art, by the way. So we have a little recap of what happened last issue. And the local roughnecks have stopped the bus of the traveling theater troupe that Del Close belonged to. One of them used to be a carny, and he goes out and tries to do this, like, I don't know, just act, basically, to scare him off. It doesn't work. They're just like, what the hell, holy hell? But in last issue, Del bought a bunch of Roman candles at an illegal fireworks stand. And they start attacking the yokels with Roman candles, and it really works. One of their hands lights on fire. There, it's a full military barrage. I like how the theater manager, he just has one of those little sparklers, and one of the actresses she says, Jerry, what's that supposed to do? And he says, I'm a pacifist. So they all scatter. They're just shooting off Roman candles like crazies. It's like the 4th of July. And right then the cop shows up, and he throws them all in jail for having illegal fireworks. So they got paid for their theatrical performance in company script, and they told them they could trade it in for cash, but it turned out to be a lie. So they had to spend all their script, all the money they made at the company store. Fortunately, there's all this whiskey there, so they're like, "Fuck it, guys, let's just buy out all the whiskey. I mean, this money is worthless anywhere else. This script." So they're having a gay old time in the bus, getting drunk, and the cop shows up again. And they're like, are you ever going to let us leave this town, officer? And he's like, hey, listen, did you pick up a young girl hitchhiking? And Del says, I suppose you're going to tell us she's been dead for... And the cop says, yeah, it's my daughter. She's been dead for 15 years. It's like that old ghost story. I don't know if you probably heard that growing up. And then the cop gets really kind of sad. He says, I'm glad you picked her up. Most people don't. They just drive by. I imagine she gets lonely out there on the road. And this like tough macho cop, just the way George Freeman draws him with his shoulders kind of slumped. Really emotional. And then he says, myself, I'd never seen her, but I drive around a lot at night looking. Maybe someday. And then he says, by the way, I'll give you cash money for any of that booze you want to sell. Since you bought out the store, the price of whiskey's gone sky high in town. So they actually make a profit. And they drive off all happy. And then this last panel, don't quite understand it. I think that's the ghost girl. And I assume these are ghost guys, because there's like weird giant snakes behind them, and they're going to push rocks onto the bus as they leave town. So I don't know why all of a sudden the ghost girl doesn't like them. Maybe it's just other ghosts, I don't know. But a very odd ending. Secret Lords of the DNA. Written by the two writers, and David Lloyd takes the art and color credits for this story. It's kind of an odd idea. Apparently the descendants of the Hatfields and the McCoys, they're both really renowned scientists, and they did a joint paper on human aggression being linked to DNA, almost to prove, like, you know, the Hatfields and the McCoys, they were notorious for just trying to kill each other for generations. They just hated each other, almost as if it was in their DNA. So I guess they prove it. And at the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony, the Nobel Science ceremony, they pull out guns and shoot each other, just to almost to prove it even more. So it changes the world. People start using it as a defense plea. You know, like the DNA made me do it. The D-Nazis go around trashing stuff, chanting, "We got no choice." And it looks like just aggression's going out of control. It looks like Russia and America are about to have a nuclear war even. So these two guys, they're all like kind of old hippie drug taker scientist guys. They say we have to we just have to talk to the DNA and reason with it. You enter through a great work of art. That's where the gateway to the DNA lies. Below and beyond the racial unconsciousness. So there's one guy who's not a drug taker, but they're like, it'll work better on you because, you don't have preconceptions about tripping. So they give him a big dose of drugs. And they say, think Finnegan's Wake. So he's thinking about Finnegan's Wake, which is the gateway. Look at this great trippy image here. Really nice. I love the way that lettering just goes, wah. Never seen David Lloyd draw this wild before. But something goes wrong because we see Hamlet. We see Alice in Wonderland, but no Finnegan's Wake. And then he sees like the aggressive DNA strands represented as these symbols. And the snake wins against the eagle. The eagle is like humanity's archetype. So basically, he failed big time. And the nuclear war starts. He didn't stop it. And these guys basically just say, when the world is ending, just got to sit back and relax and enjoy it. And the main character says, it's not without a certain savage beauty. I see this it almost looks like a Japanese wood print. That old style art is of a nuclear bomb going off. Very odd one. This one's even odder though. The St. Louis Electric Giraffe Keeper. So Edwin and Angelita help her and live here. They're an old couple. And one morning she wakes up and there's a giraffe in her second-story bedroom's window. And Edwin's old. He's an old circus guy, retired. And he says, "Hey, my friend had no place to put his giraffe. I told him I'd put up the giraffe for a little while." And the wife is not happy. And they live in St. Louis, so it's getting cold. The winter's coming, and giraffes can't live in the cold. Excuse me. So the wife leaves to live with her sister. And he puts all these blankets on the giraffe and earmuffs and a hat. Kind of looks like Yarn Man. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, this is drawn by Don Simpson, creator of Yarn Man and other mans, like Megaton Man. So he gets a telegram that his friend, who told him to take care of the giraffe, he died suddenly. So he's like, what am I going to do with this guy? The zoo doesn't want him, and it's getting cold. So one morning he wakes up, it's snowing, and he looks out, and the poor giraffe is like half dead from cold. So he brings out more blankets, and then he says, "Oh, this will take care of it. I got this electric blanket." And when he plugs it in, he fries the giraffe. That's some pretty crazy art. And then he realizes that he's going to have to chop him with the chainsaw, chop him up, so he'll fit in the dumpster. And he says, this is going to be messy. I better wear some protection. So he's been making these crazy heads for a holiday pageant. So he puts on this crazy looking rabbit head. And right then his wife comes home. And he's coming out of the basement. It's like this nightmare image of this crazy rabbit holding a chainsaw. And the wife can't take it, the shock. She falls backwards and she's dead. So I guess he got an inheritance from his dead wife, and he opened a magic shop. And every year his house was the favorite for the Christmas season, because he would take all these crazy heads and put them on snowmen. I like this. We see Zippy the Pinhead, Little Orphan Annie, Godzilla, and the giraffe. He saved the giraffe head. Another great issue. I miss Wasteland. Number 9. Nope, sorry, number 8. David Lloyd cover. Very spooky. So we start off with a guest artist. George Freeman's not in this issue. And it's Tom Artis. He did a lot of DC, like normal comic superhero stuff. This one's written solo by John Ostrander. No Del Close. And it's called Heebie Jeebies. This one's very odd. This couple are having sex, and it's kind of, like rough, sexy sex. And they start just having the kind of weird conversations you have. And she says she loves him. She'll love him forever, no matter what you were. And he says, what if I was a pedophile? Would you love me then? And they get this huge argument. She's like, oh, that's ridiculous. You always push away when I try to get, lovey-dovey. But he's really pushing it. He's really like, what if I am one of those guys? You don't know. I know we've been together for 5 years, but you have no idea. I could be out killing little boys every night. Pretty nice art by this Tom Artis guy. I don't think I have any stuff by him. I remember seeing him around. So the main woman is talking to her friends. And the woman all of a sudden says, I don't want to live with you anymore. He's like, you're kidding. He says, listen, forget about what I said last night. It was a joke. I'm not a child killer. You know me. And she says, you made me realize I don't really know you. You never let me really know you, and I won't live with a stranger. Goodbye, David. Very stagey ending. Of course, Del Close and John asked her from the theater. It actually is like this prop door, and there's a spotlight. This one's another kooky one. This is The Dead Detective. It's a solo, once again, by John Ostrander. Maybe Del Close needed a vacation. And this one's drawn by William Messner Loebs. This is a little less loose and sloppy than he's been. This is just a weird one. So this detective is dead, but he's still conscious. He doesn't know why. He doesn't know how. These guys break in his office and beat the crap out of it. And as they're leaving, one of them says, and don't do it again. And he has no idea he has no memory of what went on before he was dead. So this woman comes in to hire him, just like in all the old detective movies, you know? And she sounds insane. She's talking about God being her father and her son. And she starts getting turned on and takes off her clothes and kisses the dead detective, smack on the lips. So she says, I'm afraid he, they, we may be in trouble. Talking about God, because she's God. She's the Father, the Son. Find us for me. I'd be ever so grateful. So apparently he died in the 40s. He has a vague memory that he lived in the 40s and now it's modern day. And he's saying, you know, things made sense in the 40s because God was alive. Things no longer make sense because God's missing, maybe dead. But I need proof. So he says, thinks to himself, God, if you're still alive, let me blink my left eyelid. And he can't. And then all of a sudden, these priests bust into his office and beat the shit out of him. And they're like, this is your last warning. And, but this is good news for him. He says, God's alive and well. Then these two shitty detectives come in. They rough him up some more. That's the good thing about being a dead detective. You can take a good beating, you know? And then that woman who hired him comes in. And it turns out that's, I think that's the father and the son she was talking about. That's her husband and her son, these two cops. It's very confusing. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, are these Detroit Tiger fans? It looks like those baseball hats. And all of a sudden they come in and a huge firefight ensues. And as everyone leaves, the woman throws a huge wad of cash for succeeding in the mission. And he thinks to himself, I'm more successful dead than I ever was alive. And I don't understand one goddamn thing that's happened. And he's quietly sitting there. This will probably all make sense eventually. That's some funny stuff. The Eye, Like Some Strange Balloon, certified autobiography by Del Close, assisted by John Ostrander, and cartooned by Don Simpson. This is some really slick Don Simpson's art. He like really reined it in. It was less cartoony than normal. This is just, I guess, a reminiscence of Del Close. He got this part in a movie, Beware the Blob. I think that was the sequel to The Blob. And his cat scratches his cornea, something awful. He's in just excruciating pain all night long. He has this hallucination that's so nasty that his eye is just bulging out of his head, floating through the city with him trailing behind. Craziness. So they pick him up for the shoot the next day, some of his fellow crew members and stuff. And he's like, guys, I need some cocaine. And they lose the cocaine. So they go to a veterinarian who gives them all these pain pills. And then everyone on set gives him some pain pills. And so he's nuts when it's time to film. He's supposed to pitchfork the blob, but he hesitates because the blob looks like a giant gelatinous eye to him with a wound. So, of course, it's freaking him out. And he's so freaked out, he almost takes off the foot of the director. Luckily, he misses his foot and just gets his shoe. And when he gets home, he says, I've learned something about love today. Is that even though you hurt me so bad, I never stopped loving you for a second. It might be horrifying to some of you if I told you that I never could feel this way about a human being. But that's all right. After all, this is a horror comic. Very oddly drawn cat. Yeah, Don Simpson, he's doing his best to be all super realistic, but that's not his forte. Oh, this makes me sad. It's number 9. This is the last issue of George Freeman. He's leaving after this issue, and he just does the cover. I really enjoyed his art. Very creepy horror cover. This is another Del Close reminiscence, and Del Close is like one of those Forrest Gump type people where because he was this like super hip guy, he was just like ran into in the same circles as all these people, went on to all kinds of fame, you know. I think he used to hang out with Lenny Bruce. He was just always like at the center of all these interesting scenes. So this is called Del and Elron. And this is artist and colorist David Lloyd. So Del is in this weird mental landscape. And we realize that it's therapy. He's talking to someone off camera, describing everything he sees. And it's basically like one of those dreams about being afraid of being born. Like, I don't want to leave. And this mountain goat butts him off the island. Just like, you know, they say when you're an infant, you know, you don't want to leave the womb. And there's L. Ron Hubbard. And I guess he was giving Del Close therapy before Scientology was even a religion. Because he makes a remark about how, oh man, all those doctors groups are fucking with me. Maybe I should just start a religion and I won't have to deal with that shit anymore. And I guess they like to fence. So they're almost continuing their therapy while they fence. It seems like Del Close has a lot of respect for L. Ron Hubbard. Like, L. Ron has all these very insightful comments about his dream. Seems pretty smart. no matter what you feel about L. Ron Hubbard, this is before, he started his own religion, basically. That's going to change someone. So this probably isn't the L. Ron Hubbard that, most people know. This is when he was a young man before he, whatever happened to him, his life changed, Just seems like they were pretty good pals. But L. Ron says, this is our last session. I got bigger fish to fry. Which, of course, he does. Now we have this really crazy story named Raoul. And this is, once again, solo by Ostrander. Art by Don Simpson. Don Simpson goes back to being, I think he burnt himself out on that last story. This is very sloppy and cartoony. We see this guy, Raoul. He's just like a 10-time loser. He goes to a priest. He says, why is my life an open toilet? And he says, it's God's will, my son. So he's like, then God's full of shit. So he's just so angry at God. He yells to the sky, come to this place at a certain time. I'm going to kick your ass, God. So God doesn't show up, not surprisingly. So everyone in the city is actually like, whoa, that Raoul's got some juice. And God loses face in the neighborhood. So he does it again. And now Raoul is like king shit of fuck mountain in this city. And nobody has any respect for God. So pretty soon people are just dissing God left and right. And because of that, things get really bad. Like Mad Max Fury Road bad. Nobody's got any morality anymore because they're rejecting God. The cops in the fire department won't even go into this part of the city where Raoul lives. Here we see Raoul. He's like the king. And then this little weird kid shows up, sucking on a big lollipop, tells people, hey, tell that Raoul guy to meet me at this certain place at a certain time. He's going to learn what's what. And so Raoul's like, I'm the one who calls people out. And of course, everyone around him's like, you're not afraid, are you, Raoul? So he knows he's got to go, or he'll lose face. So the little kid shows up. He says, you God? He says, no, I'm just carrying a message for him. He says, God's usually too busy taking care of all of creation to deal with this crap. But he's going to make an exception in your case. And he proceeds to break his nose, break his legs, break his arms, and just leave him half dead and walks off. I think he's the Archangel Gabriel or something. One of those warrior angels. So things get really nice in the city. God's belief in God has been reestablished. Kids said please and thank you. Nobody ripped nobody off. And everybody went to church again. Of course, it couldn't stay that way. People being people backslid to their old ways. And we see like a repeat of that panel, just things gone to total anarchy. But now the difference is not even the meanest mothers were heard to badmouth God. And here we have Subtext Salad. Del Close and John Ostrander writing, William Mr. Loeb's drawing. This seems to be another autobiographical strip. Where it looks like it's back in the 60s or something, or 70s. And Del Close is being interviewed by this little theater major. And he's telling her some of the tricks of the trade. This is really loose William S. Loeb's art, but I like it. Really just, every face is like a caricature. So he decides to tell her the story of the coleslaw in the underwear story. So just like how some actors will put like keys in their boot so they have a limp and they don't forget to, favor one foot. One of his actor friends said, dude, this guy, they were partners. And he says, you gotta try that to get an extra edge on your performance tomorrow. Put coleslaw in your underwear. And Del Close told him to it. He's like, yeah, I bet that would work. I really like this little panorama here of all these sketchy faces. Pretty nice. Every face is very distinct. It's a little faint, so I hope you can see it okay. Really nice. I like that. See, it seems like this is a nice mix of William S. Loeb's being super sketchy and almost sloppy, you could say, but also looking good. These panels are great to me. These faces, very exaggerated. These guys are totally laughing and charmed by their coleslaw in the underwear idea. So Del does it. Of course, he's got to have whitey tighties on. Boxers wouldn't work. He says that it worked. It did give him something, an edge, he says. But then as it got warm, he said he almost forgot it was there. Because when you're on stage, it's almost like you forget everything else. So after the show, he goes to a bar and picks up some hippie chick. And he leads her to his apartment and to his bedroom. So I guess you can see where this is heading. He pulls off his underwear. And a bunch of rancid cabbage falls out. It's been stewing in his jockey shorts all night. And he tries to explain to her, and of course this hippie chick's just like, get away from me, I'm fucking out of here. He thinks to himself, what must she think of me? You can't even dignify this with the name perversion. Once again, another great panel. I hope this is just isn't a fluke that William S. Loeb's decided to draw like this just as an experiment. I hope this shows a progression where he's going to keep going. Now we're back in the present. The theater major who's interviewing him for the college paper is just outraged. She's like, why would you tell me that story? And then when she leaves, John Ostrander shows up. And he says, hey, man, you want to hang out and talk about comic books? And John Ostrander says, I think you have a mind that belongs in comics. That's a good one. So there you have it. Wasteland, number 7 through 9. We're halfway through our examination of Wasteland. This has been a treat getting to read these again, guys, for the first time in decades. Probably 30 years, I imagine. More, actually, probably. They really hold up. I love these comics. Still blows my mind that DC published them. Bizarre. So next time, we're going to see who the new artist is, who replaces George Freeman in the roster. And I'm excited because I'm not going to peek. But hope you enjoyed it. And I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Institute. I'm sorry, we're now an academy. The Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.